studies, for sure. So thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts and what you're expecting from this session. I'm just going to give you a quick insight into what TomoClub it really is and what this collaboration means for us with Calm Minds. Right? So TomoClub is an educational gaming, social emotional learning curriculum for children from grades 3 to 12, where they come together on a platform like Zoom, or whether they're even in their classrooms and they play collaborative games, which then help them foster social, emotional, and 21st century skills. Right? So we're going to begin right away now. Today we have Kristina Manning, who is the founder of Calm Minds Parenting Coaching. She has worked with families for over 15 years in the schooling system as a classroom teacher and a school counselor. She has created Calm Minds Parenting Coaching because she sees the need to help parents find their internal sense of calm and create peaceful homes where the whole family thrives. And I find that absolutely wonderful. She's also a very passionate person who she's who's passionate about really helping parents embody this peaceful parenting, at least these peaceful parenting strategies. So welcome, Kristina, and thank you for taking out the time to be here with us and really catering to the kind of strategies that our parents can actually take back with them. All right, the floor is all yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Chelsea. I'm really happy to be here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because I have some slides I want to share with you guys. Just give me a moment here. Let's see. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? Good, thank you. All right. Whoops, sorry. Okay, so today's presentation is From Chaos to Calm, Mastering Peaceful Parenting Strategies. And again, I am Kristina Manning, a parent coach. Okay, so you're in the right place if you're frustrated because your kids don't listen, you're tired of having to repeat yourself over and over, you feel like yelling is the only way to get your kids' attention, and you may feel guilty after you yell. All right, so today's objectives, we're going to participate in a guided meditation. We're going to discuss the reasons why we yell sometimes. We're going to talk about 4 different parenting approaches, and we're going to learn evidence-based techniques to stop yelling. And you're going to learn all about my 6 weeks to peaceful parenting group program that actually starts next week. So lots to discuss. All right, I don't know that I need to say this. Chelsea already kind of introduced me, but yes, I worked in the school system as a teacher and a school counselor, and that is what the catalyst that made me want to move into becoming a parent coach. I'm very passionate about helping parents embody peaceful parenting. Okay. All right, so we're going to start with a guided meditation. And the reason why, it's just going to be very, very brief, but the reason why we're doing it is because this is one of the strategies that I teach parents who I work with to just try to find their internal sense of calm. So with that being said, I invite us all to just soften our gaze or close our eyes, whichever feels good to you, and begin connecting with your breath. So let's take a nice deep inhale through the nose. And let it all out through the mouth like you're blowing out a birthday candle. Again, inhale through the nose. And let it out. As you continue to connect with your breath, I invite us all to bring attention to the crown of our head. And what we're doing here is we're just noticing any sensations that come up. Maybe there's nothing. Maybe there's an itch. Whatever it is, we're just noticing here without judgment. Taking a nice deep inhale through the nose. And letting it all out. Beautiful. Moving down to the forehead. Invite us all to just kind of drop and relax the muscles in our face. And just notice if anything comes up for you, any types of sensations here. I invite us to unclench the jaw and drop the shoulders here. Moving down to the neck and the shoulders, two places where we tend to hold tension. And with that, take a nice deep inhale through the nose and let it all out. Bringing attention to our back. Let's begin with the upper back. And down to the middle back, middle of the back. And the lower back. Again, another place where we tend to hold tension. And take a nice deep inhale through the nose. And let it all out. Bringing the attention to the front of the body, the chest, the torso. We're just scanning here. And down to the abdomen and the sits bones. And I invite us all to just, for a moment, notice the contact that your body is making with the earth or the chair or whatever you're seated on right now. Just notice, just observe. Moving our attention to the thighs, the tops of the thighs, the sides of the thighs, the outer and the inner. Just observe. Moving down to the kneecaps, the shins, and the calves. Take a nice deep inhale through the nose and let it out. Moving down to the ankles, the tops of the feet, the toes, and the soles of the feet. And again, if your feet are making contact with the earth or any type of surface, the floor, just notice here. And I invite us to just take a moment of gratitude for our feet and how they help us get around. Take a nice deep inhale through the nose and let it out. And we will end this practice. I invite us all to take one hand and place it on our heart. And take another hand and place it over that hand. And I invite us to set an intention for ourselves for the rest of the day. Do we want to be gentle and kind with ourselves? Do we want to embrace imperfection? Whatever that intention is, I invite you, whenever you have it, rub that right into your heart. We'll seal the practice. And one last inhale through the nose. And let it all out. I love to know in the chat how that was for you. How do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you are just great, wonderful, excellent, and 1 being not so good? I'm just curious to see how the meditation was for you. And again, as everyone's dropping in the chat, oh, I see a thumbs up. Thank you. the reason why I'm doing this is because the body scan is so powerful and it really, really can help us as parents and as humans. Anyone can benefit from meditation to just take a pause before we respond to any type of situation. So let me check it. Let me look at the chat real quick. Oh, 997. Oh, that's great. Those are good numbers. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate it. 8. Oh, good. I'm so glad that benefited everyone. Okay. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on. But put that in your toolbox, by the way. If you don't meditate, I highly recommend even at just maybe 5 mindful breaths throughout the day. It really does go a long way. So highly recommend. Okay. And Chelsea, I am getting people, I don't know if someone else is the host, but I'm seeing people are still trying to enter. Do you want me to take care of that or someone else?
I'll take care of that. No worries.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. All right.
Any idea?
So I think someone may need to hit mute. Oh, thank you. Okay, so let's just start. Like, why do we yell, right? Why do we yell? Well, maybe we're frustrated. Maybe we grew up in a home with yelling. Like Chelsea was talking before about the social emotional skills. Like, a lot of us didn't grow up with those skills. So we want to learn them now so that we can, pass them down to our kiddos. We may feel like it's the only thing that works, right? The only way to get our kids' attention is if we raise our voice. We may feel triggered, or maybe we're just exhausted, right? And this is not an entire list of why people yell, but just a few reasons, right? We're all human. We're not bad people if we yell. It happens. Okay, so now I want to bring our attention to the 4 parenting styles. We have authoritarian parenting, which is a lot of what I hear as a parent coach. A lot of us grew up in a household with authoritarian parents where it was basically, you do what I say, you don't ask questions, I'm the parent, you're the kid. End of story, right? So we would consider that firm, but not too respectful. So that's authoritarian parenting. Then we have Jekyll and Hyde parenting, which is neither firm nor respectful. And a lot of times, Jekyll and Hyde parenting might be like in a household where parents have 2 way different parenting styles. And so you don't know which way you're going. Mom may feel one way, dad may feel another way. It could also be divorced families. You go to mom's house and it's a free for all. You go to dad's and he's strict. So that's where they nickname it Jekyll and Hyde parenting. We have permissive parenting, which is respectful but not firm. And that's basically you just want to please the kids. You want to keep them happy, give them all the candy and popcorn, just keep them happy, right? If they want to jump on the couch, let them do it. It's pretty much a free for all, right? That's permissive parenting. And then we have positive parenting, which is also called gentle parenting, mindful parenting, peaceful parenting, which that is the style of parenting that I help parents learn about and embody. And that is both firm and respectful. So a lot of times people think, oh, positive parenting, that must just mean like you just let your kid do whatever they want. Well, no, there still are boundaries and structure put in place, but we can do it in a respectful way. Okay, so let's play a little game. Let's see here. Okay. Okay, just a few scenarios. Judy asked her kids to please stop jumping on the couch, and they kept jumping. Judy just let them have fun. What type of parent do you think that is? Do you think that is permissive, Jekyll and Hyde, authoritarian, or positive? You can go ahead and drop it in the chat if you'd like. Or you can unmute and just say it, whatever works for you. But think about what type of parent Judy is. Oh, yep, permissive. Absolutely, because I have 2 permissives. Great job. Yeah, she's just kind of letting the kids just do whatever they want, right? Absolutely. All right, our next one. Oh, good job. All right. Tabby asked her mom if she could go to her friend's house. She said, not until you finish your chores. So she asked her dad, and her dad said, Sure, I don't care. Is that permissive, Jekyll and Hyde, positive, or authoritarian? You can go ahead again and drop that in the chat. Yes, thank you, Jekyll and Hyde. Absolutely. Poor Tabby, she's probably so confused because, mom gives her one answer and dad gives her another answer. So that is 100% Jekyll and Hyde. Great job. Whoops, sorry. Okay. It was a beautiful day at the playground and Mario was having a blast with his friends. His mom said it was time to go and Mario started screaming, saying he's not leaving. Mario's mom said, I know you want to stay and you feel angry that you can't. It's okay to feel angry, but we're leaving now. Say bye to your friends. What type of parent is that? Permissive, authoritarian, positive, or Jekyll and Hyde? Whoops, I'm sorry, I just gave you the answer. But I'm sure you guys knew that. Okay, I see some positives. Yes, and this is positive parenting because the mother's setting the boundary. She's saying, no, we're going to leave now, but she's doing it in a really respectful way. She validated her son's feelings. It's okay to feel angry, but we're leaving, right? So that's what we would call positive parenting. Okay, lastly, Vanessa's playing Minecraft on her iPad. Her dad yelled, it's time for dinner. Get down here now. Vanessa couldn't hear her dad because she had headphones on. All of a sudden, her dad ran into her room and snatched the iPad out of her hand and screamed even louder, you're the worst. You don't listen to anything. I am ashamed of you. What type of parent is Vanessa's dad? Okay, yes, authoritarian. It's authoritarian. It's okay if you're not sure. So the reason why this parent is authoritarian is because he's not respectful, right? He's very demanding, but he could have probably asked Vanessa in a different way to get off the iPad. She had headphones on, she couldn't hear him. So that would be an authoritarian parent. Disrespectful, absolutely. And that's what authoritarian is. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, it's disrespectful. And we can parent and have boundaries and be successful and have connections with our kids with positive parenting. We don't have to make them feel bad and shameful just to get them to listen. I promise you. Okay. So yes, authoritarian. So thanks for playing that game with me. That was fun. All right, so I just want you to take a moment and just think about what type of parent do you want to be? What type of parent do you want to embody? Parenting style, rather. You don't have to put it in the chat. You can if you like, but just think about that. What do you want to? How do you want to show up as a parent? And I don't know why I can't see. Here we go. There's the chat. Positive. Yes. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. Yes. Positive. Okay. And I'm not at all saying positive is the right answer at all. You can literally embody whatever you'd like to as a parent, but the research now says that positive parenting or mindful / gentle / peaceful is the way to go because we'll get into that more, but absolutely. Thank you for sharing what type of parent you'd like to embody. All right. Whoops. Okay. So before I go into that, so when we think about positive parenting, again, gentle / mindful / peaceful, all these different nicknames, right? There are some strategies we can use to embody that with our kiddos, okay? And the first one is actually one of the SEL domains, right? So a lot of us should be familiar with that. And that is self-awareness. So self-awareness, I'm just going to drop these real quick. Okay. When we have self-awareness, we're reflecting on our own personal experiences and how they shape us. So that, again, if we grew up in an authoritarian household, like many people, not everyone did, but many parents I talked to did, it's important if you want to try to be a different type of parent that you had to reflect on your personal experiences. That's the first step, is to have that level of awareness. Okay. Then it's also important to be aware of our triggers. What triggers you? A lot of parents tell me whining is a big trigger. So if you want to drop in the chat what type of, oh, actually, I see some things in the chat. Let me hold off. Believe in good cop, bad cop parenting style. Then someone said, however, it is challenging when the house is very dirty and homework is not completed. I totally hear you, Carly. Totally. It's really, really hard not to want to just yell, because sometimes that's the only time things get done, when kids are, being yelled at. But we know a lot of research out there shows that when we do yell, kids, their brains go offline. And so if they comply, it's only out of fear. So we'll talk more about that, but thank you so much for sharing that. Okay. And to have self-awareness is to know when to take a pause. The power of the pause is just, it really can just like change the entire scenario. So let's say you're, in a situation where your kid is whining, having a complete meltdown, and you just want to just scream, right? We're human, of course we do. Nobody wants to be around somebody who's screaming. Well, this is when it's really important to know when to stop, so that we can respond rather than react. Because we don't want to, we all feel guilty, or most of us feel guilty when we yell at our kids and we make them feel bad and shameful. So part of self-awareness is knowing when to just take that pause. Okay. Again, deciding how you want to show up as a parent, which we just talked about, how we want to embody. Let's see. And be clear about your personal values, right? Like, do you think about what your family values? Like, does your family value honesty? Does your family value respect among the family? Once you have your values, you sit down and you talk about what your values are as a family, then you can decide what type of parenting style aligns with those values. Oh, this one is so important. Are you giving yourself compassion? A lot of parents, pretty much, I would say like 99% of the parents that I work with, they don't leave any compassion for themselves. They're just pouring into everyone else. And so it's important to make sure that you are just giving yourself some love. And part of that can be just taking a mindful breath. And if you made a mistake and you yelled, it's forgiving yourself, right? I yelled, but I know that, I can do better next time. One of the most powerful things you can do as a parent is repair and apologize. All right. And are you practicing self-care regularly? Which we talked about with meditation. That could be, are you meditating? Are you, from a very basic standpoint, are you drinking water? Are you, filling your body with nutrients? Are you moving your body? Those will go a long way, because when you can pour into yourself, you can pour into your child. Okay. And I know we're like, do I have a few more minutes, Chelsea? I can like kind of go like pretty
Yes,
fast.
absolutely.
Okay,
No,
great.
you have another 15 minutes to go, Kristina. Don't worry about it.
Okay. I wanted to share this video with you, but I don't know if I can share my sound. Let me see. I'm gonna hit play and see if you guys can hear it. Just give me a thumbs up or not.
Sure.
You can't hear it.
We can.
All right. Well, it's just a really quick clip from the show Schitt's Creek. A lot of people love that show, and it basically is just Moira, the mom, and the adult child, David. And he's like, I'm pretty sure that parents are supposed to put their kids before themselves. And Moira is all sassy, and she's like, no, if I've learned anything from airplane safety videos, is that a mother puts her own mask on first. And I know that's silly, but it's true. We cannot serve our children if we do not put our, oxygen masks on first, so to speak, right? So make sure, it's so important that you are pouring into yourself. And I hear from a lot of parents, it's like, well, where do I find the time for that? And, I have to take care of the house and the kids. It's like, I totally get that. But even like I said, just a few mindful breaths and those basic needs by making sure you're eating foods that fuel you, staying hydrated, stuff like that, that will really, really go a long way in your parenting. Okay. Yes, so we just talked about this. I'm not going to go through all of this, but these are just a few ways to make sure that we're filling our own tank, right? Gratitude is huge. Mindful movement, anything that fills your tank and keeps you able to function and be the parent you want to be. Just think about whatever that is. Okay. Our next strategy is called updating our software. Like, what in the world do I mean by that, right? Software. Well, we don't live in the same world we lived in years ago, like when we grew up, right? So we wouldn't make sense to parent from that same lens because we're in 2024, right? So things have changed a lot. All right. Traditional parenting is all about behaviorism. Like I said before, it's like you do as I say, you don't ask any questions. It's all about the behavior. We just correct the behavior, but we don't get underneath the iceberg at all and try to figure out what the feelings and the emotions are. I don't care if you're whining, stop it right now. That's behaviorism, and it's outdated. So peaceful parenting, we get beneath the surface. We take a moment, we take a pause, and we're like, wait a minute. Why is my kid whining? Why is my kid having a meltdown right now? And that's where we can try to decide, we can use HALT. Is he hungry? Is he angry? Is he lonely? Is he tired? Because all behavior is communication, right? So we might think our kid's being super annoying by having a meltdown, but really it just means that there's a need that is not being met. So in peaceful parenting, we get under that iceberg. And it's all about changing our mindset. It can be tough because, again, a lot of us grew up in a very, very different household, not with peaceful parenting, but the research tells us that this is what works in the long run. Okay. Yes, speaking of research, the research about yelling shows that if we yell at our kids a lot, this doesn't mean, every once in a while, but if we yell frequently, kids are more likely to have behavioral problems, anxiety, depression, stress, and emotional issues in the long run. So it may work right then if you're yelling to get their attention. And let me just make something clear. If a child is in danger and they're running out in the middle of the road, obviously you're going to yell. You're going to raise your voice, right? But if their safety is not in danger and they're just whining and annoying you, try to take a pause and a step back, right? Because you don't want your kid to grow up with, any of these issues. Well, a lot of us do, but you don't want them to have to deal with anything that they don't need to. So there's the research. Okay. Strategy 3 is adjusting our expectations, which is kind of like updating our software, right? So oftentimes we expect our kids to be able to behave like adults, and we don't even know that. We don't even notice that we're doing that. We're just like, I expect you to know how to regulate your emotions and have impulse control and, be able to do the things that we can do as adults. But they don't have that because their brains aren't developed yet. In fact, the newest research says that brains aren't developed until almost 28. So they don't have those executive functions where they can, again, be able to regulate themselves and make decisions like we can. So we do have to adjust our expectations. And I just kind of talked about that with brain development. Our brains are not fully developed until we're almost 28. And the emotional hijack. So just quickly, I had mentioned this before, when we're yelling at a child or if a child's having a meltdown or if they're just very heightened emotions, right? What happens is they call it flipping the lid, and it basically just means that their amygdala, and I'm not going to get into like all the, scientific part, but basically what's happening is the brain goes offline, and all that matters to a child when they're in a heightened state is their safety. That's all that matters, right? So in their mind, even if, to us it's not a big deal, a child may be perceiving a situation as like a lion is chasing them, right? And so the brain goes offline, they can't respond. So it's just like important to be mindful and understand these types of things about, brain and child development so we can adjust our expectations. Yes, and we talked about emotional regulation. Again, that's one of the executive functions, and that's in our prefrontal cortex, which is the higher thinking, and that is definitely not fully developed when we're kids. So we might expect our kids to be able to regulate, but we got to know that knowing about the brain development, they really can't do that. So we have to model and model and model what we'd like to see. All right, I'll just go through this really quickly. There's something called the 3 R's. It's regulate, relate, reason. And regulate, relate, reason was developed by a neuroscientist named Dr. Bruce Perry. He was basically just saying, you have to do, when you're helping a child in a meltdown or, a tantrum or crisis, whatever, first we need to regulate ourselves before we do anything. Because a heightened or a dysregulated adult cannot regulate a child who's having a hard time, right? So first we take those mindful breaths. And then when we feel ready to respond, then we can help regulate our child. Then we can start relating to them, hugging them and really not using a whole lot of words. And then we can get into reasoning and problem solving. But you never want to do this out of order. If you go straight to reasoning when a child is having a meltdown, it's pretty much like you're talking to a brick wall because again, their brains are offline. So just try to be mindful of the 3 R's. And yeah, I'm not going to go through this because I kind of just explained this, but again, regulate, relate, and then we can start to reason and reflect. And this is one of my favorite quotes. A dysregulated adult cannot regulate a dysregulated child. Again, by Dr. Bruce Perry. So again, we think that our child's, in crisis or having a really hard time, like if we're having a hard time, it's not the time to respond to them. It's time for us to take a deep breath, go get a drink of water, take a break before we can respond. All right, and I believe this is our last strategy. It's connection before cooperation. Relationships shape the architecture of the brain, and that's by Dr. Dan Siegel, and he's amazing. He wrote the book, The Whole Brain Child. Highly recommend it. You'll learn all about neuroscience and child development. But the reason why I put this here is because relationships are paramount. We cannot expect kids to listen to us and comply if we're not connecting with them. So what does connection time look like? One-on-one. So, prioritize one-on-one time with your kids. Now, like, let's say you have 5 kids and you're like, how am I going to do that? Like, that's impossible. Well, this is about quality, not quantity. It does not need to be you spend an hour with each kid a day. No one has time for that, unfortunately. It's just literally 5 minutes. Maybe you're reading a book with them. Maybe you're doing Play-Doh, going to the playground, whatever. It's all about connecting with your kids so they feel seen and heard and doing something that they would like to do. Again, just for a few minutes, and that will go a long way. Yes, it should be uninterrupted, so we shouldn't have our phones around. And I know that can be extra challenging because our lives are on our phones, but just take 5 minutes, put the phone in another room, and go have some connection time with your kiddo. Again, make sure it's something that your kid wants to do. And I already talked about quality over quantity. Now I'm just gonna go quickly through the next, because I know we're pretty much out of time, but this is just a testimonial that a parent that I recently worked with had shared. I'm not gonna read it, but the shift that I saw in this mom was really miraculous. She came to me like, what do I do? My kid is just always storming and having all these meltdowns, and I don't know what else to do besides yell. So we worked together, and she gained a bunch of tools. And now she felt a shift after us working together. So I just wanted to share that. And quickly, because it's starting next week, next Wednesday, actually, my 6 weeks to peaceful parenting program is all about, for parents who want to learn how to find better ways to communicate. And we go way deep into, we talked about the 4 different parenting styles, but we go really into positive parenting, which we also call peaceful parenting. We'll explore self-awareness, updating our software, expectations, and the power of connection, again, very deeply. This is just the surface level. And I promise you, you'll walk away refreshed and with peace in your soul. So if you are interested in that, I will drop the link, my link tree in the chat, which has, all the ways you can connect with me and find the 6 weeks to peaceful parenting. All right, if you register by tomorrow, you'll get $40 off, by the way. And yeah, because we're starting next week, registration is closing this weekend. So with that being said, does anyone have any questions? And let me go ahead and check the chat. Oh, thank you so much, Chelsea, for putting halt in the chat. Oh, you're welcome, Carly. Anyone have any questions?
All right. I do have a question. More like,
Sure.
yeah, I mean, so you were talking about emotional hijack, right? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
we do have a question about how they can register. I think it'd be great if you can put the link in the chat box. I think that'd be great for them.
Absolutely, I will do that. I will
Yeah,
drop that right in the chat. Was it Alicia?
yeah,
Yes, I will drop it in the chat, but go ahead. While I'm doing that, go ahead. What's your question, Chelsea?
yes. I was just asking about emotional hijack. Could you give an example that you've encountered and how you've dealt with it? As and when you face such a situation.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So, my gosh, I have so many. Why don't I talk about one of the kids that I worked with when I was working in the school system? So, a child that I was working with, let's just call him Johnny, right? He had a full-on meltdown in the middle of the cafeteria at lunch. Was like literally throwing things, screaming. I think he was angry because he did not have like the lunch that he wanted. It doesn't really matter. But anyway, he was in full-on meltdown, like, the whole works, completely dysregulated, right? So, I was school counselor at the time, so I was called to come, respond to him. And I had a choice. When I got there, I could have been like, you know what, stop what you're doing right now. You're embarrassing yourself. I could have yelled and screamed and whatever. But as we know, a dysregulated adult cannot regulate a dysregulated child. So what I did was I stayed really calm, right? I started with that first R, which is regulate, right? I wanted to make sure I'm regulated and calm, because what will happen is the mirror neurons in the brain will the kid will start to look at me, and he did start to see me just sitting there calm. My body language was calm. I got on his level, because it's really important sometimes when we're like standing above a child, it can be very intimidating. And I just got on his level and I stayed quiet, and I just, kind of tapped him on the back to let him know that he was safe and everything was okay. Then he started to calm. We moved into relate. I still didn't say a whole lot, right? And then when I could just tell by his body language, then we moved into the last R, right? Which is reasoning. And I didn't reason with him right in the lunchroom. I took him once he was calm, and we went back to my office, and then we started to problem solve and say, okay, you were throwing things, you were screaming. What type of effect did that have on the other kids around you? And what could we do differently, right? So that's how I handled that situation, because again, he was completely, emotional hijack. If I started to go right into reasoning with him, it would have been like me talking to a brick, right? Because the brain goes offline. So I hope that that was a good example, Chelsea.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's something that even as educators, we face that on a daily basis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wherever we are. And I think I love the fact that you mentioned, and it's not very common knowledge, unfortunately, is to be at the same level as the child, or at least go
Right.
down to their level, right? Because I
Exactly.
mean, I'm not very tall, right? And I still feel very intimidated when there's someone really tall standing right next to me. So, like,
Right.
though it's funny, but like, it's completely understandable. So, yeah, absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. Thanks for sharing that, Christina. We have
Oh,
Alicia. I
sure.
think Alicia has another question, and I do have another question for
Sure.
you.
What's your question?
Hi, so I have a question, and I try really hard to, do the positive parenting, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
my son will get upset. When he gets upset, he gets very, very upset, like yelling hurtful things. And I
Mm-hmm.
just say, like, I stay calm and I say, I love you, and then he throws back
Mm-hmm.
things like, you don't love me, you're just a big jerk, like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's why you are always so mean to me. And I
Mm-hmm.
stay calm, but I don't know how to pull him out of it when he gets like that. Like, I'm staying calm, I'm being present, and it could go
Mm-hmm.
for hours.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Alicia. I was gonna say sometimes you will not get to the reasoning stage until the next day. Sometimes kids need a long time to just, regulate themselves, right? And how old is your son?
He's 11.
11. Okay. So just like we were talking about before, like with the brain not being fully developed, like he might be yelling hurtful things, and that's really, really, really hard. Sometimes as a parent, it can be hurtful. It's like all these things I do for him, and he's screaming these things at me. But best advice I can give you, Alicia, is to not react to it because he doesn't mean it. He really doesn't. When he's completely dysregulated like that, he's just saying things. He really does not mean them. And so I would just continue what you're doing, staying calm, and even if it takes hours, just model your calm, because what you're doing is you're sharing your prefrontal cortex, you're sharing your emotional regulation with him, you're sharing your calm with him. And yet it doesn't happen with kids. It doesn't happen. Like with the example I gave of the child in the cafeteria, that didn't happen in 5 minutes. I told that story really fast, but it took a little while to get him, regulated. The only way it worked is because I stayed calm. If I started yelling at him, I'm just pouring gasoline onto the fire. Does that make sense? But this is something I can totally help you with in the peaceful parenting group. So I hope that you register. We start Wednesday and I just dropped it in the chat. So I would love to have you. I'm also happy to hop on a call with you, Alicia, if you have like more questions. If you want to just you and I get on Zoom, happy to do that too.
I
I hope I
would like
answered your
that.
question.
I would like,
Okay, great.
that.
All right, I'm going to in the chat, Alicia, I'm going to drop my link tree, and in it has a way for you to sign up for a consult with me. And you'll see,
Okay,
you can connect with me in many different ways there. But I hope that
great.
helps. Awesome. Any other questions?
Yeah. Just building on to what Alicia was saying, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's something that is very niche to her, and that's something that she's going through. But we are aware of parents who struggle with this on a day-to-day basis, and particularly with teenagers or preteens, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
again, they're going through their hormonal changes. There are different environmental changes happening around them also, right? Like they're being
Mm-hmm.
bombarded with like an influx of information where they don't really know what to do with it. Whether it's with their bodies, whether it's with their friends, whether it's with the internet, right? It's like a whole different ball game that they're experiencing right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, how would you suggest that that a parent can connect with this child when they're facing these different difficulties, right? Or even if they're not difficulties, or even if they're not excessively challenging, how do you how would you say a parent can connect with their child with all of these things that a child might be going through? How do you think we can get them to start talking?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing is with kids, they're not always going to just come out and talk, right? So one thing that I do with kids when I really would like them to express their emotions, but they're having a hard time, is play a game with them. Play some cards, play a game. And I've found that when I do something like that, kids can, they start to feel comfortable, because kids, they like to manipulate things with their hands, and it can help regulate them and calm them. So if you play a game with them when you're trying to just get them to express themselves, it can make them feel at ease. And then another thing is really try to, figure out personally, what is that kid, what are their hobbies, what are their interests? Like, really, really try to do something that they like, right? Because a lot of times parents will be like, well, I mean, we unloaded the dishwasher together. Isn't that connection? And I'm like, well, can be, but is that really what your child wanted to do? So just make sure that you're making that effort to, just know what their hobbies and interests are. But I would definitely start with playing a game.
Right. Thanks for sharing that, Christina. And absolutely love the part where you mentioned about self-awareness and self-awareness, particularly for parents, through the four-step guide that you mentioned, or four-step strategies that you mentioned. Absolutely. I think even as educators or even parents, as adults primarily, we forget that we require that at times, right? We forget that we need to deal with other adults as well. And yeah, and that's primarily what we're trying to do here at TomoClub as well, right? We're trying to teach skills that we think we've learned it very late in our lives, right? And if not very late, it's just taken some time for us to actually reflect over those, right?
Right.
And
It always starts with the adults.
yeah, so yeah, absolutely. And would love. Oh, we do have another question in the chat box.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah.
How to deal with your child when she start comparing you with his friends, or and want you to remodel behave like their other parent. That's a great one. That's a great one. How old are your children, if you don't mind me asking, before I tackle this question? 4. Okay. Okay. So again, when we're 4 years old, our brains, let me just say real quick, let's think of it as 3 brains, right? We have our survival brain, which is, that's our lower, we can't think, all we care about is safety. Then we have the emotional brain, where we can feel, and then we have the thinking brain, which is in our prefrontal cortex, and that doesn't even begin, I believe, until start to develop until maybe 5 years old. So your 4-year-old, if they're comparing themselves or comparing you to another parent, or they're 4, right? Maybe the other parent, I don't know if the other parent gives them candy or, gives them whatever they want, and I'm not quite sure what the situation is, but just to keep in mind, there's a saying called Q-tip, and it's quit taking things personally, especially when it's kids, and especially for someone who's 4 years old, or even a teenager. Teenagers say things because their brains aren't developed. But my point is, kids are going to say things, right? They're going to try to push your buttons, but it's not because they're, bad and they're, out to get you, or they're vengeful or whatever. It's because they're kids and their brains aren't fully developed. So with that, I would just listen to your child and reflect back what their concerns are. Like, I hear you, you're saying that, so-and-so's parent does this for them and you want me to do this. And then just explain to them why you do things differently. Because you think that even with a 4-year-old, like, they're listening. They are listening for sure. So don't underestimate, a 4-year-old even being able to retain what you're saying, but also keep in mind that brain development, right? They're not going to be able to, they may say things comparing you to another parent, but I would just take it with a grain of salt and explain to them your why. When you explain the why, kids really do respect that. I hope that answers your question.
Kristina, I had one quick question.
Sure.
I have teenagers, 2 boys, they're 14, and it seems like parents kind of go one way or the other. They can go really, really strict and with exposure to reality, which is all over the board, or really permissive. Could you just comment on how, because it seems like to completely shelter your child, then they're going to get to like college or their young 20s and be like, oh my God, this is reality. But then to be completely permissive doesn't seem to be a good option either, because there's a lot of really scary stuff that I don't think they're really equipped, because I don't even feel equipped as an adult to deal with. So I was just wondering if you could, I know there's probably not a right answer, but just comment from a developmental stage what your feelings are on that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So with positive parenting, or whatever you want to call it, peaceful parenting, we're not sheltering our kids at all. We really want them. The whole point is we want them to be able to thrive in the real environment. We're not spoiling, we're not coddling at all. We're just parenting from a respect lens, right? Because again, like with behaviorism, it's just all about you do as I say and you don't ask any questions. And you mentioned permissive parenting. It's a free for all. I'm going to give you what you want. You're going to get your way all the time. But with peaceful parenting or positive parenting, right? We still have boundaries, we still have structure, and we want to set them up for success, and we want them to be independent and be able to thrive in the real world, which I with parents one-on-one too. The group that I talk to you guys about is just because we're starting next week, but this is something I can certainly go deeper into with you, Carly. If you want to hop on a call, I'd love to help you specifically with your son.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course, of course. Any other questions?
All right. And we are towards the end of this lovely workshop that you've hosted for us, Kristina. And before we close this off, would love to understand or would love to know from everyone else how they're feeling right now, right? We will be sharing. Oh, we've got a good question in the chat box. So would love if you can answer that in the chat box as well. Good books to read on parenting.
I would say the biggest thing, I would say try Whole Brain. Have you read The Whole Brain Child by Dr. Dan Siegel? That is excellent, because in order to be that peaceful parent, it really does come to us understanding neuroscience and child development. So The Whole Brain Child by Dr. Dan Siegel. I highly recommend that.
Thank you for sharing that, Kristina. And as we're closing off, we do have a poll in the chat box, which is a feedback form, a Google form. I would love if you all can take the next minute to just fill that up. It gives us insight into what sort of workshops you would also like as parents, right? How we can help, or at least how we can support your children even more. As your children have been joining us at TomoClub and with the different sessions that they're in, with the kind of peer group that they're in, how can we make it better for them? Because at the end of the day, it's a whole child that we're looking at, right? We're also looking at how can parents, or how can we help parents provide the kind of education, or the kind of insights into social emotional skills, just like what we are trying to do over here as well, right? So let us know.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, I was just going to say really quick, I dropped my link tree in the chat, and that's where you can find my website and all my social media handles. And if you'd like to sign up for a consult with me. So the last link that you see is my link tree. So I'd love to get on a call or have you in the peaceful parenting group. It's going to be really great. Thank you, Chelsea.
Yeah. All right. And thank you so much, Kristina. I think this was extremely insightful. And anyone who's going to go back and look at these videos, or at least look at the video of our session, is going to learn a lot from that as well. It was extremely descriptive, and I'm taking a lot back as well as an educator.
Oh, thank you so much. And for the people who are watching this on the replay, Chelsea, will they have access to the links? I don't know if they'll see the chat.
We can add that in the description. Don't worry about that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy that you guys asked me to come out and talk. And yeah, it was a great time to meet everyone. And just thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much once again. And we hope we'll be able to host another session or another workshop again with the parents and with a bigger group as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'd love to come back.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
You're welcome, Amy. Very welcome.